Hello, everyone. You might have noticed a utter change of scenery. Well, the scenery kind of changes with all my videos, but we're in Andy's room for this one, just because. Okay.
Becowies.
Dillinger Escape Plan's new album. One of us is the killer. Let's do this.
It's me.
I'm gonna stay away from you then. No. I'm not actually dead. That was just a stupid joke. Okay, so let's get right into the track-by-track list, so those of you who want to can see what tracks off this album might intrigue you the most based on our descriptions, or if this video seems too long as fuck for you, you can click this annotation right here and skip to what the bulk of our review pretty much is going to be, the general idea of the album. Alright, let's go ahead and get started. The first track on the album is called Prancer. And this kicks off the album in your very typical Dillinger Escape Plan fashion. Just jumping right into the craziness and staying crazy as fuck through the whole thing. Because that is what Dillinger is all about. Just like jumping all over the place with their music while still maintaining a focused sound. Mathy and extreme as fuck. Frantic, chaotic on crack. That's what we've gotten from Dillinger from the beginning, and it's certainly no different here. And some of the patterns in this are just absolutely insane, even by Dillinger-like standards. And there's this one part in the middle where, like, there's a chord progression that kind of reminds me... Well, there's a lot of moments on this record that really remind me of this, but, like, there's a part where the chord progression sounds like something you could hear off of Mr. Bungle's California record, which was their final album. And then there's these huge guitar chords with these super fast spoken vocals over it. It's just such a great song. Great way to start off the album, and it flows perfectly into the next song, which is even amped up a little bit in the craziness. There's this really unpredictable, well, it doesn't sound like that, but it's a start-stop pattern in the playing that kicks off the next song. It's schizophrenic as fuck, to be perfectly honest. There's some leads going ballistic in the middle of the song, and it's really quite a feat how some of the songs, but especially this one on the album, go all over the place but have a central focused kind of theme. Like Cover Killer Nation said in his review, it's like a nuclear bomb dropping as opposed to, like, I don't know, a bunch of different explosions going all over the place. And then the title track starts, and it's got this really kind of haunting, kind of just like quiet intro that adds dynamic contrast to the album where it wasn't really as present before, because the first two songs are just like loud and crazy all the way through. But the verses definitely add dynamic contrast to the rest of the album, and this humongous catchy chorus on it, it's just great. Overall, this song in general takes a huge step back from the mathiness, but it's also, in my opinion, better than the previous two songs, which started off the album. And there's a riff in the bridge section of this song, and this is where you started to notice one of the things that I didn't even catch, like, pretty early on, like, in the vocals and this riff in the bridge of the title track.
Sounds a lot like Mastodon.
It really does. This riff in the bridge of this song really harkens back to, like, early Mastodon, like Leviathan and Remission era. And the vocals, too, you said. Like, specifically Brent Hines, who is their guitarist. Dillinger's vocalist here, Greg, really has the same kind of timbre that Mastodon's vocalist does. And he also harkens some of Mr. Bungle's kind of Mike Patney-style vocals in a lot of these sections, too, which is really cool. And then Hero of the Soviet Union, which is the next track, it lunges you back into the crazy mathiness. It's just crazy as fuck. Like communism. Soviet Union, communism. But the tonality, honestly, of this song just really sounds more evil than anything you've heard previously on this record. Like, there's some chromatic note passages here and there that just sound fucking evil. Like communism. No offense to communists, it's just we felt we had to make that joke. But, and there's some also electronic timbres that are added to this song that really add a nice thing to the mix too. Next song is definitely my favorite on the record. Plus one more. There are a couple songs on here that are honestly tied for what I feel personally is the best song on the album. And this one's called Nothing's Funny. And the opening riff is just groovy as shit, and the vocals are great all the way through. Like, this song I feel has the best, catchiest, but it's not like, you know, mainstream or cheesy. It's just got a fucking great chorus to it, and then there's another great bridge riff. There are a lot of great bridge riffs on this album. After the chorus, it's just amazing. It flows incredibly well. Nothing's Funny is an amazing song. If you're going to check out a song from this record, definitely check out this one and the one I'm going to talk about after this. Yeah. But then the only real weak song comes up, and that's Understanding Decay.
Honestly, I don't really even remember much from it.
It's not structured as strongly as some of the other ones. It starts off with this kind of weird drum loop that you'd hear more in a Square Pusher track, and Square Pusher's an electronic artist. But then it goes into the insanity stuff, but overall in this song I find it hard to get into because it feels like really they threw everything that they'd already displayed from the album tracks previously into a blender and just try to combine it all into one track, and it really just doesn't work from a structural standpoint for me personally. But there is this really cool there's one part I remember. There's this like percussion track where it sounds like he's hitting the drumsticks together for this one part.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you remember that now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But just other than that. So yeah, but then we get to, and didn't you say this one was your actual favorite on the track?
Yeah, Paranoia Shields.
Paranoia Shields is the other one that's tied for my favorite as well. It starts with this little itty-bitty sort of intro riff, but then it goes into more... Well, no, it retracts into the, like, Mr. Bungley awesomeness, and then it explodes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, when it explodes, it gets awesome, but it goes back and forth between those two moods for a while. And structurally, this is just an amazing song for a lot of the reasons why Nothing's Funny is a great song. It's not one of the more unconventionally structured tracks, like The Magic That I Held You Prisoner, which is later on the record and we'll talk about later, but it's got like your whole verse, chorus, awesome-ass bridge riff, chorus, and then it just ends the song right there. But great vocal lines, great structure. There's a really, really quiet, clean guitar bridge that just comes out of nowhere. Everything cuts out except for this, and there's a brass section that plays this gorgeous melody on top of that, and then the song builds on that. And one of the best parts of the whole album right there. Fantastic fucking song.
Yeah.
And then you get to this song that's like about a 2.5-minute instrumental bridge on the album, CH375. Not gonna try to say that. Fuck that.
It's a bunch of numbers.
It's a bunch of numbers, and like
they should have titled it that. That would have been a great song title.
A bunch of numbers, especially considering it's Dillinger. You know, it's fucking math metal and shit.
Yeah, exactly.
But then it just kind of builds off this static, and then slowly but surely it turns to this super heavy, psycho groovy little Dillinger song from this really, really, really offbeat groove. Dillinger, in a lot of ways, I could compare them to Hybrid, and I probably will in the album as a whole section. They just use a very large amount of off-kilter grooves. They're not just like a band that changes time signatures like they're like they fucking sound way more choppy and just hard hitting, to be honest. But this is a great little instrumental track, and especially when you get to the slamming and just chugging these humongous final chords at the very end. But then the next song is Magic That I Held You Prisoner. And it's also short, but it's probably, like, during the heavy parts, the most ballistic track on the entire record. And that's saying something, because Dillinger Escape Plan is a band that is all about being ballistic. Exactly. This whole record is fucking nuts. But there's some bells added during one section of the song, and it really adds, like the name of the song says, a really magical timbre to the song. But the vocals in this song, there's a whole section from the 1 minute and 30 second mark up until almost a minute later, the 2 minute and 30 second mark right before the song ends, where it's just straight, clean vocals all the way through. and it's just like probably, besides the chorus in Nothing's Funny, my favorite sung part of the entire record, because it just starts out amazing and then it gets better and better, because it starts out with that kind of whole Brent Hines Mastodon-y clean vocal timbre, but then as it goes through, it goes into a bit more of like really, really jazzy, progressive, melodic style, very much like Periphery's debut, the vocal lines that Chris Barretto wrote while he was in Periphery that appeared on Periphery's debut, which I adore. So I adore this part in parallel. It's just fucking great. Then there's 2 more tracks on the record after this. Crossburner, which is another definite highlight. It starts out with this super trudging, dark, distorted bass riff. And then it goes into a really heavy, dark riff that sets the tone for the song. And there's some more dynamic contrast in the beginning between the really heavy sections and quieter sections. But this is just overall, it's a great penultimate song for the record, and there's a riff that comes out of nowhere at about a little past 2 minutes and 40 seconds that's fucking amazing. And there's another part that comes a little after that with these really frantic bursts of lead guitars that sounds like a fucking computer malfunctioning or something that could be in like the soundtrack of, Tron or some shit, But yeah. And then the song after that, The Threat Posed by Nuclear Weapons, really, I can't think of anything to say about this song other than it's a great closer track for the record. And if you dug the other songs on the record, you should really like this. And there's a nice... I remember in the beginning it starts out with this contrast between the really quiet section, but then sudden burst of heaviness, and then it retracts, and sudden burst of heaviness, and then it goes back into the heaviness, but then it pulls back again a little past 2 minutes, so it's got a little more of the dynamic contrast here as well. But it's a great close to the record. Now, as a whole, it's really insane how tight this band is, because, we've both heard the album, because they just change with these really small, very intricate, hard-to-play time signatures. It's amazing how they can lock in as a band and how coherent the album as a whole can be with how crazy this is. Very much like Hybrid, in my opinion. These guys can definitely be compared to Hybrid with how, I guess, mathy they are, and how deep and powerful some of the messages in the music are. Although, I gotta go in up front and say I did not like this as much as Angst. Nowhere near. So, this isn't gonna be a 10, folks. And then you got the production. The sounds on this record, in like the guitar, I would personally consider this in the extreme metal category. Definitely, because it's got really mathy song structures. Greg's vocals are screamed in this insane tone screams timbre. He just pours his fucking guts out into the music, almost literally with his voice. And the guitar tone, while it's not really heavy, it's more like a sharp guitar tone, I'd describe it. It's like kind of like glass because of how the high end is in it. It's like stepping on glass. It just hits you fucking hard, but it's not like getting stomped on. It's just like stepping on something painful. It's a very painful timbre, but it's not like the heaviest guitar tone ever. But I still would say it's heavy enough to be in the extreme metal category. But the bass tone is almost unhearable in the mix, except for when the guitars are pulled back.
Yeah.
Because you really couldn't hear the bass.
I couldn't, no.
Yeah, it's like a black metal record, I guess, in that sense.
Yeah.
Or
Within the Ruins record.
True. All those kind of genty bands.
Yeah.
Where they just kind of pull it back. But it's fuzzy as fuck when you can hear it.
Yeah.
And like we already said, some riffing styles and vocals really do harken to Mastodon. If you're into, Mastodon and math metal, then you should enjoy this record.
Yeah.
And another thing I really want to touch on is that this record sonically surprised me, and yet it didn't really surprise me at all. And what I mean by that is, before I listened to this record, to be honest, one of the only album I'd heard all the way through by this band was their album Miss Machine from 2004. And I was under the false impression that they'd really changed their sound and gotten a lot more mellow since then. I'm dead serious, too. Like, I thought Miss Machine was this super crazy, heavy album, and then, like, on Ironworks and the other one, I think Option Paralysis it was called, that they'd kind of tone back their sound a little bit. But no, I listened to Ironworks a little bit recently. It's just fucking crazy as shit. They really haven't stopped being this just unrelenting technical force in modern metal, to be perfectly honest. But, and I wasn't surprised because I was told that this record had a lot in common, with the Miss Machine album and with Mr. Bungle, and for the love of God, those parallels are so true. If you like Mr. Bungle and you like the Miss Machine album, and you like your technical metal, you like your stuff that you can get from Mastodon, you're gonna fucking love this. We thought it was great, but definitely not one of the, one of the better albums out of the crop of albums we've heard this year. So I'm gonna give this about an 8.25 out of 10. What would you give it?
7.5.
And so we're gonna go ahead and round that out to an 8, which is what most people seem to be giving this. So Dillinger Escape Plan, One of Us is the Killer, 8 out of 10, great album. If you like those things I mentioned, definitely check it out, and we'll catch you guys later. See ya.